Hello and welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast. I'm Terry, the creator and co-host of this podcast. I've lived with depression most of my life, and I know how easy it can be to feel all alone in the experience. I'm not alone, and you aren't either.
And I'm Dr. Anita Sands, a licensed clinical psychologist with a number of my own diagnoses, all of which bring a certain amount of anxiety and depression along with them. There is great power in shared experiences. We share our own as we engage in intimate and candid conversations with our weekly guests, exploring different perspectives on and experiences with depression.
We keep it real because depression is real. We keep it hopeful because there truly is hope, in spite of what depression tells you. This podcast is produced in partnership with Recovery.com. Recovery.com provides resources and information for individuals seeking treatment for mental health or addiction issues. Its website is a fact-checked and vetted online platform of treatment centers to help individuals find the right path to recovery. This episode is sponsored by the A.B. Korkor Foundation for Mental Health.
Hi, Terry.
Hello, Anita. So today's guest is Sean, and we first met him at a panel discussion about the role of arts in mental, public, and community health. The thing that caught our attention was how openly Sean spoke about his rising anxiety as the event started. He joked about his rapidly tapping leg, the need to take anxiety meds to settle himself, and he made several revealing and amusing comments about the way that his particular brain works, all completely matter-of-factly, with zero shame or embarrassment.
And that made us think. The media, in its many forms, is inundated with reports of the youth mental health crisis, and we are not challenging or ignoring the research. But in addition to, or maybe even because of, the rise in mental health disorders, there's also been a rise in awareness, openness, programs, and support to help address and manage mental health disorders. Sean is a great example of how being honest about what's going on in our minds and bodies with people we trust can lead to levels of authenticity and freedom that previous generations rarely experienced. So here now is Sean giving his voice to depression.
Diagnosed with general depression and anxiety when I was like 14, 15. But, I remember being like a 5-year-old kid with this pit in my stomach of like impending doom and being like, what is this feeling? What did 5-year-old Sean have to be anxious about? Like, nothing. But I don't know. I guess it was just always having that chemical imbalance. So I've pretty much had it as long as I can remember.
Unlike the vast majority of the people who've shared their stories on this podcast, Sean grew up in a home that acknowledged, treated, and spoke about the things they were experiencing.
The household I grew up in was very, very aware of mental health. Both of my siblings are on the autism spectrum. And so I think just growing up in that environment made talking about mental health and accepting that I got my own things going on just very natural.
Tell me what that's like. What's it like growing up where you can say, I'm in a really dark place, or I'm really too anxious to do that, or whatever it might be?
I don't know. I think that because my mom suffers from a lot of anxiety, and a lot of this mental health awareness is certainly more so on my mom's side. My dad has always been a wonderful, kind, caring, compassionate person. But, my mom has always been the one with the vocabulary and the knowledge around mental health and things like that, because it's something that she has had a lived experience with. It was all I knew. It's all I've known. And I do find that as a generational thing, and the people that I have chosen to surround myself with that are in my age group, they have a pretty similar way of talking about their own mental illness and mental struggles.
While social media is often cited as a contributing factor to the mental health crisis, Sean, who's 26, says the internet provides a level of separation that can actually facilitate that communication.
And I feel like social media and things like that, while bringing their own, cacophony of issues with them, did sort of let people talk about how they're doing and just sort of put that out into the ether and joke about it and meet people that they might not have otherwise met that can empathize or relate or quip back at them about depression or what have you.
So this may all be very normal for you, but for a lot of our listeners and for me, it is not. And so I'm curious to know, when you say, I am whatever it is, in a bad place and I'm not going to whatever you said you were going to do, what's the reaction in your friend group?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely say that stuff, and my friends also do as well. And the reaction is, it's empathetic, and it's usually like, sorry to hear that you're not doing well. Like, can I get you anything? Can I do anything for you? Like, oh, we were planning on going out to the bars tonight. Do you want to instead just have a game night? You know what I mean? Stay in. Do you want to just watch a movie? Like, yeah, we all try to take care of each other. And we just understand, because pretty much my whole friend group are people that suffer through anxiety, depression, gender dysphoria, all sorts of different mental illnesses. I have friends that are on the autism spectrum as well. And yeah, we just try to, look out for one another, because when someone is in the throes of some kind of crisis, whether it be just I'm having a down day, or someone is like, I'm actively suicidal, or I'm in the middle of a panic attack, we can all relate to that feeling, and we all know those feelings suck. So try to help mitigate for one another. And yeah, I hope that that's not too much of an anomaly for folks in my age group. I found that a majority of the time, people in my generation try to be more open and empathetic when it comes down to mental illness, because of how the conversation around it has shifted, and it has become a lot less stigmatized. I think that everyone recognizes that even if they're not clinically depressed, most people in their life experience depression. If someone's not clinically anxious, you can still experience anxiety. So yeah, I think that sort of shift has helped, at the very least, me and my friends be open about mental illness as a topic of conversation and as a thing that impacts us on the daily basis.
It gives me so much hope, because, I hear that, the younger generation, and I say it, and it makes me sound even older than I am. But to hear it in action, I want to go back to what you said. So if you were going to go out with a group of people and one of them said, like, not in a good place, you said, it wouldn't just be like, hey, sorry, you're in a bad place, we're going out. You would change your plans to include that person and watch TV or a game night or whatever examples you gave. That's next level. That's what we hope for, to be included and to be accepted anyway.
Yeah. I think that it helps that a lot of my friends grew up watching Winnie the Pooh, and we're all just like, aw, Eeyore, you miserable little goblin. You can still come along, So.
Aww. There is a lot written about Eeyore's depression, including an article on optimisticminds.com that calls out the lesson of acceptance taught through the iconic donkey. Quoting, even when his friends knew Eeyore and his character, they never judged him or kept him away from their company. They accepted him for who he is. And the best part is that Eeyore never bothered to change himself or anyone around him. Eeyore remained the gloomy, sad, and disinterested donkey he is, and never sought to fit in with the others to be loved and cared for. His friends loved him nevertheless and included him in all their games and adventures. They stood by him like pillars of support and were always careful not to add to his misery. End quote. It's worth adding that it's widely believed that Pooh Bear had several behavioral disorders of his own. Rabbit had symptoms of OCD, Piglet generalized anxiety disorder, and all the other characters, including Christopher Robin, had their own stuff.
You know, birds of a feather and all that fun stuff. Like, people that have mental illness tend to flock towards other people that have mental illness because of that empathy, because of that feeling of, like, I don't have to be scared saying, like, I am losing my fight with anxiety today and the thought of leaving my apartment terrifies me. Or that it's just like, I can't go out tonight. I'm sorry. I spent most of the afternoon cleaning my apartment and now that just took the wind out of my sails or whatever, you know, like, I think that a lot of people have been there and felt that, and it's very freeing at the very least to be able to be honest with yourself and with the people that you care about and that care about you. And, you know, everyone knows that it's not like personal. Everyone knows that it's not because it's like, oh, Sean just really doesn't want to hang out with us, or like, you know, it's not targeted. It's just, it's mental illness. It's chemical imbalance. It's being overexerted. It's being stretched too thin, you know. Yeah, it's never about I don't want to be with you. It's about I can't right now.
It's life.
Yeah.
So in that instance, if somebody says, you know, not in a good place, but just want to be alone, then is it they're just that's done? Or would you be checking in with them? Would you text them during the night and just say, thinking of you, or is that too much? What do you do when a friend says that?
You know, I feel like at the very least with my social circle, it's like, unless you are intentionally isolating, turning off your phone, things like that, there's usually someone around to talk to if you need it or you'd like to. You know, it's more like sending stupid memes and just sort of like jokes, having fun, trying to distract or things like that. But I don't even know if it's that sort of intentional, sort of that cerebral of like, okay, you know, we're going out to the bar. Sean's not coming with because he's too busy being sad. Like, we're going to make sure that while we're at the bars, we're sending content or, you know, talking to him or making jokes or something to help him. It's just sort of like, it's just kind of how the friend group is that it's always lively. It's always fun. It's always silly. So, yeah, I definitely think that a part of it is making sure that everyone's okay. But I feel like it's just sort of second nature.
I love the idea of it being second nature to take care of each other. I think that's beautiful. Does it help if you're the one staying home because you're not, well, I'll say because you're in a depression, does it help to get that little stuff, or is it like, leave me alone? But if it was that, you would probably just turn your phone off, right?
Yeah. I think that it does help to still feel included, even if I'm at a distance. You know what I mean? To still feel like I'm part of the group, even if I have personally explicitly canceled plans that night. You know, I just think that it's important to kind of keep in mind yourself. And it also helps to be reminded from the people that you're close with that your mental illness is not the only facet of your being, you know, like there's more to me, there's more to you, there's more to whoever than the fact that, oh, they're a bit of a Debbie Downer, aren't they? Like, you know, so yeah, I think that it is helpful to still sort of feel that, you know, just because I'm not there with them in person doesn't mean that I'm forgotten or that I'm being excluded or left out or anything like that.
So I always talk to people about their tools, the things they use to manage their mental health. And you have a pretty unique one. I have to admit I hadn't heard it yet. So talk to me about the things you do, including dance, to keep yourself in a place where you are functional and feeling okay, doing okay.
Yeah, totally. So dance is definitely a big one of them, having been tap dancing for almost 25 years now, which is very strange to say.
It sure is when you're 26.
That next year will be my quarter century of doing this art form, which is bizarre. But yeah, I mean, dance is certainly a big one because it is physical. So, I get that exercise component in, which so many people say is, almost a necessity for battling depression, keeping the sad thoughts at bay. But another sort of creative outlet that I've found that has helped me is I'm a big old dork, and I love fantasy. I love, like Lord of the Rings and Dune and The Witcher and all of these amazing universes that have been created. And so, that escapism is fun, and it's nice, and it's a great distraction. And I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. And then I feel like the pretty bog standard things, at least for, young men, watching TV, playing video games, napping, harassing my silly cat.
Are the big two, meds and therapy, a part of your toolkit?
Yeah, I probably should have been medicated at a much younger age, but I only started with pharmaceuticals like at the very beginning of 2023. Yeah, I went to my primary care doctor and said that I've been having panic attacks, and he said, okay, let's try 50 milligrams of Zoloft once a day. And that's what worked for me. Okay. And I'm very thankful that I did not have to experience the trial and error of, using your body and your mental well-being as a test subject. And now that I've been taking my drugs for over a year now, it's sort of just part of my life. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm better for it. I haven't had, I haven't had regular panic attacks in a while. They still pop up. But yeah, so I lucked out on that one.
One could also argue that Sean lucked out by being part of a generation that better understands the spectrum of human emotion, and the fact that our place on it at any given time does not alter our inherent worth.
Trust those that trust you, and talk to the people that you're close to, and be honest with them. And yes, it is scary, and yes, it is plunging into a bit of the unknown, but at the end of the day, if someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, a significant other, whoever, if someone rejects you because of your mental illness, then why are they in your life? It's part of you. It's as much as we loathe, the things that make us ill, it is an unavoidable truth of so many of our existences. And if someone is going to nitpick at this one little tiny facet of who you are, then they don't deserve the rest of what makes you you.
Oh, Terry, I love Sean, and I love this episode so much. It made me really think about how what we're doing is sort of like helping with this progression with each generation, sort of raising their emotional IQ, right? So we start with denial and blame and stigma, and that's the only response to mental health issues. Mm-hmm. And then we move to education and trying to increase understanding. just sort of like an intellectual understanding of mental health issues. And then we can next move to emotional understanding, which to me is like the empathy piece.
Yes.
And then from empathy into action or behavioral change. And so I really feel like what Sean was talking about, especially like with his group of friends, was empathy in action means accommodation. Mm-hmm. So if there was somebody, whether it was him or somebody else who couldn't make it to a social event, they accommodated, they met the person where they were. They either changed the plans or they found a way to bring them in. And to me, that's no different than, if you see someone in a wheelchair who cannot get up onto the sidewalk because there's something blocking the access, you don't just go, oh, well, it sucks to be you. And you don't even just with your intellectual understanding of the situation say, well, I can see why you can't get up on the sidewalk, and then keep walking.
Right.
You go, okay, let me go over and figure out how to unblock that access. Mm-hmm. You go to where they are. You accommodate to their need with both the intellectual understanding and the emotional understanding, the empathy. And I do see an increase in both the intellectual understanding of mental health issues in younger generations, although it's never too old to learn this stuff. Sure. But I also see that empathy piece and the empathy and action piece, like he was describing, mm-hmm. and that's what we need.
And as we move toward that, I just think what a difference mm-hmm. that would have made over the lifetime of people who've lived for decades. With various things that would have mm-hmm. required, that might have required, I don't know what word to use there, some compassion, some accommodation.
And inclusion.
And inclusion. You're right.
The not being left behind.
Huge.
It's the not being left behind piece. And, we're all in this together, no matter what part of our culture tries to convince us that this is like a competition. We're in it together. If we're all however many billion of us, marching down this road, the goal is not to see who can get there first. It's, can we all get there together without leaving anybody behind? Mm. And I think sometimes we can get so stressed or so convinced that what's most important is somehow getting to the front of the line and crossing that finish line first. And it's not. It's making sure we all can get there, no matter what our needs, no matter what our issues. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. It's to make sure that people whose voices have been silenced, or they're so far at the back of the line, nobody's listening, or they drop out and nobody notices. It's to make sure that there's awareness, that there's voices, and then that there's this inclusion, that we can help each other to get to where we all need to go.
Nice. Absolutely.
We're all walking each other home is a great way to put that.
I love that. Every time I hear it, it just sort of warms me. And, you're not always wherever you are in the line. And there are times that, those of us who might be lending a hand need someone to lend a hand.
Absolutely. It's fluid, right?
It is fluid.
It's a fluid thing in life. Sometimes we can help. Sometimes we need the help.
Absolutely.
You and I both have that lived experience.
Absolutely. So thanks to you, Anita, and thank you, Sean. I really appreciated both meeting you and hearing mm-hmm. a bit of your story. And it wasn't what we were going to talk about, which I thought was funny. We started with, I don't go into interviews with questions, but I had sort of an idea of what I was going to talk to him about because he does dance therapy. Yes. And then he started talking. I'm like, okay, so we're not talking about dance therapy. We're talking about this because while it's normal for you, it is not the way a lot of us have experienced mental illness.
That's right.
And I really appreciated that the focus changed.
Those are goals.
Absolutely.
We could all kind of move in that direction and get there. That's the inclusive, compassionate, successful society that we're looking for. We truly hope that our podcast brings a little more understanding, helps you better articulate and reflect on your own experience with depression, or better understand how to support someone else who is struggling.
If this episode has been of comfort or value to you, know that there are hundreds of others like it in our archive, which you can easily find at our website, givingvoicetodepression.com. And remember, if you're struggling, speak up, even if it's hard. If someone else is struggling, take the time to listen.